Hi, I'm Margie Holmes, psychologist, author, and educator. Our topic for today is fetishes. Now, many people have many misconceptions about fetishes, and I sure hope this episode will slay some of the myths associated with them. To me, the three adjectives most closely related or associated with fetishes are strange, sexy, and sometimes scary. Natch, because when you have a fetish, it means that you are turned on by something that doesn't turn on most people. For example, chickens or dressing up in furry clothes, etc. And it's very hard to understand why someone should find something so sexy. And when you don't understand something, it sometimes is scary. Just look at people who take their dates, their first dates especially, to scary movies. It's because scary movies are, scary, and therefore that makes them sexy. So, for this show, I asked people, what do you think of fetishes? And here's what some of you said. Wing Basilos, I find fetishes fascinating. It's interesting what makes other people tick. I don't have one, but live and let live. Bert Kibuyan, a fetish is a very personal thing, and I respect that. Some fetishes are sexual, perhaps erotic. Others are weird, creepy. But whatever they are, it's fine with me. Personally, I don't have any. No further comment. Now, Mark Anthony Cabrera wanted to know the same thing I did, which is, what's the strangest fetish you've heard of so far? Your answers? Christine Chan. Fetish that's just weird. For example, furries. Now, for the uninitiated, furries are people who get sexual pleasure from dressing up as animals, mainly animals who are covered in fur, like bears, or rabbits, etc. So what furries are is they dress up in these costumes and like to have sex, get sexually aroused, having sex with another person who is dressed up in this kind of costume. Now, it may be so weird that you think they don't exist, but why don't you check out online communities such as Uncyclopedia. In fact, there are enough furry communities that exist that even YouTube and Google have a few examples of this. Now, Shilo Kuku's Tita Dai has another weird fetish, which is coprophilia, and she says, ooh. Now, actually, coprophilia can really be ooh to a lot of people. And here's a hint. Coprophilia is also called scatolophilia, which, as you can probably guess from the names, involves sexual arousal and pleasure. Sorry, I'm so uwi kasi siguro, from feces. Okay? Manny Balane says, sniffing smelly underwear. By that, I presume, Manny, that you mean used underwear? And although, Manny, what is smelly to you can actually be sexy, strongly scented, and even savory to others. I mean, who knows? There might be some celebrity, perhaps a reality star celebrity, who might even make a perfume with this as basis. But even if this is something that a mass of people tend to take as something acceptable and they all buy this perfume whose basis is used underwear, it may be strange, but the fact that everybody wants to smell it will make it not as much of a fetish or not a fetish. Perhaps we can discuss this in a future episode. Eric Julian Manalastas says, I have no particular disgust, but I'm simply curious about heterosexual men who get turned on by the thought of coming in a woman's long curly hair. Let me add to that, Eric. There are other people, other heterosexual men, or maybe even gay men who love coming on the face of their partner. And usually, it is the men who come rather than the person who has the face that is cummed on that look at this as a fetish. I mean, I wonder, maybe some people, the first time it happens, think they might drown or something. Anyway, Chris Lopera adds another fetish that he thinks is very weird, which is outdoor sex. But a lot of people find this very exciting, and generally there are enough people that find this exciting so that it is no longer considered strange, which just goes to show that what may seem a fetish / strange to someone is not necessarily a fetish that / strange to someone else, or as the saying goes, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Now for your questions. Nicasio Perez Lim Aquino asks, is the Chinese lotus foot a symbol of eroticism and seduction? Yes, it is, Nicasio, especially in the olden times where a lot of women were forced to have bound feet. And I think this shows that culture has a lot to do with how you define fetishes. Tanya M. Garcia asks, is it more common for men to have fetishes? And yes, it is. In fact, the only fetish which a considerable number of women seem to have is masochism. Now, actually saying this involves a lot of controversy because there are a lot of feminists, especially feminist psychoanalysts, etc., who say that women seem to like masochism only because the culture encourages it. Now, Tanya Garcia, among many others, asked, when is a sexual fetish considered a mental disorder? Thanks so much, Tanya, and everybody else who did ask this question, thus giving me an opportunity to talk about paraphilias without seeming like I'm making yabang or showing off. Now, a paraphilia is defined as an intense desire towards particular atypical objects, which usually is necessary before a person with a paraphilic disorder can be turned on. So generally, a fetish is something that people like and get really excited if they happen to have it. You know, their partner is willing to do it. But paraphilias are things that you have to have before you get turned on enough to have sex. So there's a bit of a difference here, right? Now, paraphilias are considered mental disorders if and only if, number one, it is possibly harmful. And I'll give an example later. Number two, there is great personal distress either to oneself or to the one who is coaxed to take part in the paraphilia of another person, of one's partner. Number three, if there is no real or truly mutual consent, which usually implies that there is no great disparity in age, status, and experience, because these can be very subtle power plays. And of course, absolutely no grooming. Now, Ferds de Ols asks, what about BSDM? Is this considered psychologically healthy? Now, all I can say, Ferds, is it depends. Because all these things above is necessary to be considered before you can say something is unhealthy. But in addition, my key guideline when someone comes to me and asks about whether something is healthy enough is its intensity. For example, and you will forgive me, I hope, there is something a little different between a slap, ooh, that hurt kinda, but between a mere slap, okay, which people can find healthy and okay, especially if both want it, or being boxed by a knuckle duster really hard. Tung poing lang. Okay, this then might be a paraphilia, especially if the other person doesn't want to be boxed this way. Okay, do fetishes have to be sexual? In this day and age, yes. Admittedly, in the past, fetishisms were meant to be something else, usually attributing divinity to an inanimate object. But right here and right now, yes, fetishists are usually people who find or who get turned on by something most people don't get sexually turned on to. You know, perhaps the best guideline is an old joke, and that is, what is the difference between erotic and kinky, or between erotic and fetishistic? Well, erotic is a feather, and kinky is a chicken. But you know, in the light of the show, I can't help thinking, well, what if the chicken, you know, feels it's okay, and not only feels it's okay, but actually in a strange and sexy and secret way, actually gets some pleasure from it. I mean, it is still strange, and it is certainly a secret I guess you wouldn't want to share with your mother-in-law, for example. But again, if no one is hurt by it, and if there is mutual consent, and please don't ask me how I know whether the chicken is giving mutual consent or not, well, what's the harm in that, right? As some people might say, cock-a-doodle-doo. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and for making Ask Margie a weekly habit of yours. Keep on sharing your stories and topic suggestions. Send me your questions on Facebook, tweet using the hashtag AskMargie, or send an email to askmargie@rappler.com. See you next week.